All right, hi guys, my name is Kavya. I am a current fourth year PhD student in the Translational Biology, Medicine, and Health program at Virginia Tech. Welcome to the Neuromotor Research Clinic. This is my research lab. It looks very different than what you may think a traditional scientific lab may look like. We actually primarily focus on clinical related research for children diagnosed with neuromotor disabilities. So if you guys have heard of cerebral palsy, that's great. If not, I'll give you a little bit of a summary. CP or cerebral palsy is a neuromotor disorder, so basically a form of dysfunction between the neurological system and basically how you move. It's usually something that's diagnosed when a child is, in the younger years, maybe, 6 months to 1 year, usually when they're not reaching their developmental milestones in the pediatrician space. It's something that varies from kid to kid. It's usually caused by some form of lesion or damage to the brain during development, or usually right after birth. And kids can present, like I said, with a number of different things. They can have mainly motor complications. They can be a little bit more medically complex and have other challenges as well that families will have to go through too. But over here, we specifically, or not me, but other people in the lab, the occupational therapists in my lab, they primarily work on a specific type of therapy called pediatric constraint-induced movement therapy. And so I have a few little props over here that hopefully will kind of describe this. So as I said, CP, cerebral palsy, is a neuromotor disorder, and usually for most children, it impacts some form of the motor-related functions for the child. And so with some specific children, they have hemiplegic cerebral palsy, which means that they recognize one side of their body and they're comfortable with moving one side of the body, so one arm and one leg on one side, but they are not as comfortable with working on the other side. And so with constraint-induced movement therapy, we actually use casts that are very similar to these. This is actually a cast that we used for a child several years ago. And so we put this cast on the side of the child that they know, and this is only for the upper arm. As you can see, there's a little thumb, and then, this looks a lot like a regular cast you would get at the orthopedic place. But it offers, a little bit more flexibility. This is something that children actually have to wear for a little bit of time. So it's actually able to be removed as well. But we put this on the side that the child is able to recognize, and therapists actually work with an intensive form of therapy that's oftentimes with play therapy, using friends just like this one. We have lots of toys in our lab to kind of harness the gross and fine motor skills for kids. So basically, being able to do large scale movements as well as small scale movements for kids. And of course, every child is different. Every child has different capabilities, and so they have different goals that, therapists and families kind of work together to come up with at the beginning of their therapy treatment. But we use engaging toys like these to try and work with kids so that they're able to have fun with going through this. And usually with therapy, these kids go through quite a bit of therapy a day. It's usually for about a month, sometimes between 3 to 6 hours a day. And if you can remember from when you were little, imagine wearing this thing 3 to 6 hours a day, but also wearing it for the rest of the time as well. So 24 hours a day for that whole month period. I definitely could not do that, but it's something that it's a bit of a challenge, especially for new families that come in as well, to just kind of have their kids keep the cast on, but oftentimes they kind of get, desensitized to it after a while. So we use toys like this, and it's actually really cool just to see, how flexible the brain is in picking up all of these, new movements and new, things that, the other side of your body can do in just a month, and it's really cool to see. So in fact, the goal is for children that are not able to do several different tasks to be able to accomplish things like holding a football, doing, thumb wrestling, or, tying a shoe. And of course, every child is different. They have different capabilities, but it's definitely a really rewarding lab to be a part of. My research is actually looking at something slightly different from this overall world. And so I'm kind of looking at more of a public health related aspect for specifically in these populations. And so children with cerebral palsy and other forms of developmental disorders are actually much more likely to develop other forms of serious chronic conditions. So these are conditions that aren't really curable, they're just ones that can be managed throughout the lifetime, including cardiovascular disease and other forms of neurological disorders, as well as other ones as well. And so a lot of these things can actually be managed or actually prevented, or at least the risk for developing it is much lower if you maintain a healthy lifestyle. And so what I'm looking at is actually understanding, because it's been told that you're supposed to eat well and sleep well and exercise, but for a lot of children with movement disorders or with other forms of developmental delays, it may be harder to be able to move more, or it may be more challenging to find things that you like to eat. And so my goal is to try and understand how these specific variables, nutrition, sleep, physical activity, and fatigue, all kind of tie together for children with cerebral palsy and Down syndrome. So it's a really cool study. It's definitely something that we don't have a lot of research in right now. And it's been really rewarding to meet with families kind of in a clinical sense as well. So yeah, this is my lab.